Mhm.
I legit would sit in my office and think, I'm not doing this right.
Hey, welcome to Ascend the Hill with Jeremy Austill. I'm Jonathan. This is Pastor Jeremy. How's it going?
It's going really well. I'm eager to hear what you got for me today.
Awesome. Well, before we get started, this Sunday we got into a new sermon series called Hospitable. It's going to be great. We got some great talking points today to kind of dive deeper into that sermon from the Old Testament. Great story about hosting the presence of the Lord. And I wanted to start with some Christmas festivities.
Yes.
The past couple of weeks, we've been doing kind of would you rather kind of fun things. I think it'd be interesting to figure out rankings for holiday candies or treats.
Okay.
Some of these are treats, not necessarily all candy.
So let just for the record, it is November 14th.
It is.
People will see this go live on November 15th. I mean, that's square in the middle of November. We've not gotten to Thanksgiving yet, but we are talking about Christmas. I just want to be clear. I'm here for it.
Yeah.
I'm here for it. All right.
Yeah. My Christmas tree went up on Halloween night, so we're ready. It's Christmas time. All right. So this is ranking 1 to 10.
Okay.
And 1 to 10, I guess, if you want to gauge it, if you got this in your stocking, how hype would you be to get this in your stocking?
Okay.
And so the first one is candy canes.
So I'm ranking each one 1 to 10.
Yeah, 1 to 10. Candy canes.
I don't really care about. I don't love candy. I don't eat a lot of it, but a candy cane. I'm gonna go with 3.
Okay.
And they taste fine. They get sticky.
Mhm.
So here's a great story about candy canes. One time when I was a kid, we had decorated our Christmas tree with candy canes.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, that's what we did back in the day. Candy canes, that tinsel, the silver tinsel everywhere. It was a little, less Hobby Lobby and a little more, whatever you can put together, right?
Yeah.
And so we had candy canes on the Christmas tree. And apparently I either snuck down early one morning or snuck out of my room in the night, and I went and would lick the candy canes and put them back on the tree.
Oh, gosh.
So as Christmas went, the candy canes, became pink and they were sticking to the tree. So anyway, I guess back then a candy cane was a 10. Right now it's a 3. I'm not going to tell a story on every piece of candy.
Yeah,
but
no, that's fine.
That is one.
M&Ms.
Man, I like an M&M.
Yeah.
I mean,
peanut or just normal?
Normal.
Yeah.
I would give an M&M. I mean, as far as candies go, probably an 8.
Mm-hmm.
And what I really like is putting an M&M in the refrigerator.
Oh.
And then if you put an M&M in ice cream, that's another level. So yeah.
Yep. Chocolate Santas.
So just like the chunk of chocolate.
Yeah, just a chocolate in the shape of Santa.
I'll probably give that a 7.
Okay.
Because again, you put them in the refrigerator.
Yep.
And you just need some chocolate. Now, if he was dark chocolate, I'd give him a 9. But if he's just milk chocolate, he's going to get a 7. but yeah, I mean, I like it. He just buys a little head off.
Yeah. Well, what about Snickers?
Snickers. Man, let's see. 16, 17-year-old Jeremy would have said 10.
Yep.
Because I would eat a Snickers. I played golf in high school, and we always practiced 5 days a week at the country club during golf season. And my dad was a member of the country club.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of every round or before the round started, because you need a snack after school, right?
Yeah.
I would go into the clubhouse and get a Coke and a Snickers and charge it to my dad. It's nice to be able to just charge it. My dad knew there were going to be dozens of Snickers and Cokes charged to him. So 16-year-old Jeremy says 10. Current Jeremy probably says 6.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just gets in your teeth. It's,
Yeah. That's funny. Every time we'd stop at the clubhouse on the back 9.
Yeah.
Going to the back 9 with my grandpa
Yeah.
growing up. Mine was Dr. Pepper Snickers.
Oh,
I don't know what it
nice.
was about the candy bars. My brother would get candy bar. It was great.
So I ate a lot of candy bars growing up.
Yeah.
I ate them a lot. Zero, great candy bar.
Oh, yeah.
Whatchamacallit, great candy
Yep.
bar. I ate a lot of candy bars. But now I can eat the mini, but who in the world eats an entire candy bar?
It's a lot,
They're
honestly.
gigantic.
Yeah.
Who eats those things? So,
Just a few more. These are a little bit more holiday centric. Peppermint bark.
peppermint bark. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm probably giving that a solid 7.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I like it. I like peppermint bark. And if there's a little chocolate connected to it,
oh yeah,
then we're
those Ghirardelli peppermint bark ones.
So like peppermint and chocolate are that is a winning combination,
Mhm.
right? So I mean, I get a peppermint mocha, like it's a winning combination.
Peanut brittle.
Peanut brittle, probably like a 3. I don't
Yeah.
love it. I like peanuts. I like peanut butter. I feel like I ate a lot of peanut brittle during a season of my childhood. And I think my mom was really into making it. And so we ate a lot of it. So it's just not that big a deal.
I like
now.
the flavor. I don't like it always getting stuck in your teeth.
Getting stuck, feeling like you're going to break your teeth off.
Yep.
All of that.
Okay, final one. Those assorted box of chocolates that they always do it. You get the
10.
10. Okay, there
I
you
do
go.
like those.
Yeah.
I did find something I like. And I only look, but here's my personality is fully at play. Number one, we're putting it in the refrigerator again. Like we're getting it in there. Problem is when you put it in the refrigerator, the ones with nougat in it,
Oh yeah.
or caramel, they kind of get. But what I love about that is the variety.
Yeah.
I love that there are a lot of options. Now I only like about 3 of those options.
Yep.
And so once you get past those, and I feel like last year, maybe the year before, somebody gave us, I guess what you would call like a high-end box of chocolates. Like it was really nice. It was elegant. It had truffle stuff. I mean, it was a box of chocolates, the likes of which I've never partaken of.
Yeah.
Like it felt bougie big time.
Yeah.
And it was fire.
Yeah.
Like there were so many good, and bro, if you get one that has that's chocolate with a little bit of like sea salt on it, it can have caramel or not, but that sea salt and that chocolate, man,
takes you to a new place. Yeah.
Listen, we've spent a lot of time on this. I started saying, well, I don't really care about candies, but bro, you've rattled my cages here with this, right? I see you got bonbons on your list. I don't even know if I've ever ate a bonbon.
Those Ferrero Rocher
things. I don't think I've ate
It's
those.
like hazelnut.
I can't think of the name of it, the brand, but every year we get like chocolate covered pecans.
Oh yeah.
Our parents will put it in our stocking or whatever, we go visit them. And it's like in this like metallic gold or metallic red wrapper. And they are so good, especially the dark chocolate covered ones. I love those. And we put them in the fridge. Again, you notice a theme. And I mean, it's chocolate and a pecan. It's not going to go bad. So, I mean, it'll be March and I'll be pulling one of them jokers out. Just savoring it.
That's a short list of some candies.
Yes.
And I love this time of year because it's one of the times of the year that I'll use it as an excuse to eat all the candy in the world, because you get all the candy in the world for Christmas.
Right.
And also it's the time of the year that people are more open to, helping their fellow man.
Yes.
And even in the vein of what we're talking about with being hospitable, you're all usually around Christmas, people are a little bit more open to like, I'm going to help someone out this year,
Oh yeah.
And
I mean, it's one of the reasons we're doing our big Kingdom Builders give, our Christmas give, because we know this time of year, just contemplating us being recipients of heaven's greatest gift, this child that was born unto us. I think all of us naturally just have an open-hearted posture when it comes to generosity and caring for others this time of year. So yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and one of the things from the sermon that stuck out to me that I don't think would happen this time of year for most people is our cultural difference between us and in the Old Testament, the prophet in the sermon. You need to listen to it. Go back and listen to it. It's in the podcast feed. It'll be linked in the description as well for you. But prophet shows up. He's kind of they don't know him.
Right.
and they just opened a room. Like she's like, I'm gonna build a room for this guy.
Yeah.
I don't think that we would do that to like usually most people are not like, I made this random person. They're super nice.
Yeah.
I think I'll, when they're coming through, they can stay at my place. Usually you vet them a little bit longer than what it seems like she did,
Yeah, you would think, I'm gonna go look them up on Facebook.
Yeah.
I'm gonna kind of check them out. Yeah, and then you add to that we know that John the Baptist came in the spirit of Elijah, and John the Baptist wore camel's hair, ate locusts and wild honey, lived out in the wilderness. And so you kind of can make a decent assumption that Elijah, that prophet, was a little bit of a wild looking wild card of a person. And Elisha is his spiritual son who's walking in double. So there's no telling what Elisha looked like.
Double locusts.
Yeah,
double,
right. Yeah, chocolate covered for your Christmas treats, right?
Well, yeah, it's just like when you think about that, like it just doesn't happen. Like people don't kind of do that. So it was just interesting. Like the first thing that she does is she sees him and she's like, I think he's a godly man. I'm going to create space for him whenever he comes through and make a place for him.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before on the podcast. It was a bit of a cultural uniqueness that hospitality was a matter of high morality, and so to not be hospitable was to be immoral, and for many, especially in that Jewish society. So that in and of itself is in stark difference. Like we are very selective on who we host. There was almost a mandate that they host those that needed. And so of course we know that Elijah didn't necessarily need per se, but we also know that it's not a whole lot different then than it is now. Somebody like Elisha would have needed ministry support. He would have needed financial help. He would have needed the kindness of strangers to make sure that he carried out the mission of the Lord. And so certainly different for us, but not that different for them.
Yeah, and I will say to the credit of, I had the privilege of going to Israel before, and there was one time we were there, and the time we were there, we were at the Western Wall, and it was on Shabbat as well. And the interesting thing was, like, even though we in American culture don't see that way, I just met this random person. They're just like, "Do you have anywhere for Shabbat? You want to come to my house?"
Yeah.
And so it seems like it's still, even though it's not our culture, in that still that biblical context.
That's interesting.
They just wanted to invite us into their home for Shabbat. I'm like, you don't know me. Like, why would you do? Like, it was very much culture.
Well, then
shock,
on the flip side, like,
yeah,
probably not.
Yeah, no, we said no, obviously, but yeah, it was just weird that was so forward.
Yeah.
Hey, how you doing? You want to come to my house? It's like, whoa, I don't even,
Right.
Well, and she makes this place for him, and he starts inhabiting the home. And we talked. You talked a little bit in the sermon, or you talked a good portion of it about being close to God. And this story is kind of like when you're hosting the presence of the Lord, you're getting closer to God. You're having that nearness to God. And I feel like for some people, it's kind of hard to not associate your emotions with being close to God.
Sure.
Is there a good is there any kind of good way, barometer to have to know, no, I'm close to God because of X, Y, and Z? Is it, where's a good way to come from that isn't rooted in our emotions?
First, I don't want to eliminate emotions from the equation.
Right.
I have found that I had emotions in my younger years because I was younger and I was still figuring out life and had not developed, and so I was had an expression of emotions in younger years that maybe at times were just because I was a very emotional person during my younger years of development. Whereas now I've been walking with the Lord my whole life, and I'm not a crier per se. I don't cry at everything. I don't get too high and too low. I'm pretty even keel, but I have found that as I walk with the Lord, like my emotions are piqued by him, by the thoughts of him, by the truths of God, and by his presence. And so I don't think there's any nobility in eliminating emotions, nor is there a nobility in being overly emotional.
Yeah.
But I do think in our faith, a faith that is void of emotion,
Hmm.
I think is a faith that is lacking. And I've said through the years, and I'll get to your question, that our emotions can be an instrument to kind of propel us nearer to the Lord. They can be leveraged for that. But anyway, I think there does need to be a balance of what I quote feel versus what I know.
Yeah.
Right. And for me, I have found that what I feel is heavily influenced by what I know. Right.
Mm.
So I know that he never leaves me nor forsakes me. I know that he is with me at all times. And maybe the thing that has created the greatest sense of nearness in my life with the Lord is not that like he has intensified himself on me as much as it is my knowing of his presence and nearness has increased to the point that like the doubt of his nearness, the doubt about his attention, the doubt about his desires to want to interact with me have so shrunk that that I know that. So I think there is an like growing in the knowing, right? If you
Yeah.
will, if you'll grow in the know, then you will find yourself um, more engaged and piqued emotionally when it comes to your faith, right?
Yeah.
But being near to the Lord, I think, is number one, knowing He is near. And then there is, I am making the efforts on my end to engage with Him,
Yeah.
right? To interact with Him. Am I praying? Am I in the Word? I mean, it's a lot of what we talked about. Am I worshiping?
Yeah.
Am I consuming the right things? Am I avoiding the wrong things? Do I have a pure heart?
Yeah.
And if I know that I'm checking all of those boxes, then I can rest in that whether I feel anything or not. That my life looks like devotion,
Yeah.
right? And we know that the Lord responds to devotion. And then it goes to learning to hear the voice of God, which we did a Wednesday night on that,
Mhm.
several weeks back, that somebody can go listen to if they're interested. But yeah, I feel a greater sense of God's presence in my life now than I did when I was 25 or 23, but it is more attached to truth than it
Mhm.
is feeling.
Yeah.
And the truth creates feeling as opposed to I need the feeling to validate truth.
Mm. Yeah. And when like when we're walking through the sermon and talking about being close to God, and you're near to God, and all of a sudden you have these thoughts of, well, also I have these uh plans from the Lord for my life that I
Yep.
feel like He's saying to me.
Yeah.
And then we get into the topic of urgency versus you have all the time you
Yeah.
have in the day to get what you need done for the Lord.
Right.
And you even mentioned that quote from Aaron Burke. I'll just read it again. I have all the time I need in a day, a week, a month, a year, and a decade to do everything God wants me to do. If I never have time, I'm doing some things God never asked me or told me to do. And
Yes.
you kind of uh, discuss that topic of creating space in your life, creating margin in your life. And if you feel like you don't have time, there
Right.
may be something that needs to go. So, a question that I think is beneficial for people who are trying to follow God's will, but especially for pastors. You're a pastor of a church.
Yep.
You feel like the Lord said a lot of things to you
Trying to
about,
be.
yeah, well, about where the church is to go. So, what is your approach as a pastor to um, having the urgency to make sure that everything keeps moving forward, but also the patience and trust of God in the process towards the things that He put on your heart?
I heard Robert Morris, obviously an iconic pastor in our times, in Dallas, um, talk. He was talking about talking to some younger ministers, and they were asking him about his younger years, things he would do different. And he said, I can't verbatim it, I can't remember the exact quote, but the gist of it was, I would have relaxed more.
Mm.
I would have spent more time with my family. He said, I had a promise from the Lord, and I'd prayed into the promise that their church, Gateway, would be an internationally influential church. He said, I had that word from the Lord.
Yeah.
He said, but then I went the rest of, for years working myself to death trying to make that word happen instead of like being faithful and committed and doing what I'm supposed to do, and then trusting the Lord with it. Basically, he took too much ownership of it depending on him, right? So I'll just little moment of transparency, and I think this can be applicable to a lot of other people's experience, whatever occupation you're in. I've grown up in ministry circles. I've gone to the conferences. I've sat in on the leadership forums. I've read the books. I've listened to the podcast of men and women who have led, quote, large ministries, like big churches, big budgets, big all of that. And man, for years, listened to people and honestly said, I don't want that life.
Yeah.
And I mean, like Michelle and I will flat out, we came to Cornerstone here for 5-6 years, and we would walk in, attend church, go home and say, we don't want that life.
Yeah.
Not because it's bad, but because everything that had ever been like told to us was like, there's a cost. It costs your family. Like it's exhausting. It's a massive burden. It's like you got to work 80 hours a week. I mean, everything that we heard was like, this doesn't feel appealing to me. And it's not because I don't want to pay a price. I mean, my gosh, I just spent 10 years giving 2 months of my year away for 10 years doing camp, like exhausted to the bone. I'm a hard work guy. I grew up, with the blue collar family, but it didn't sound, it's like for me, the cost that everybody, all these big people had, the picture they had painted to me didn't seem worth, right? Because I don't need a big church to make me feel valid, right?
Yeah.
So I'm laying out, I'm getting somewhere with this. So lo and behold, we start sensing the Lord leading us this way. He starts changing our heart about what our future is going to look like. And I find myself pastoring this church. Now, we're not the biggest church, but we're a big church.
Yeah.
We don't have the biggest budget. We got a big budget.
Yeah.
We have a big building. We have a lot of responsibilities. We got 26, 27 full-time staff. So I got a few months in, and I thought, I'm not doing this right. I legit would sit in my office and think, I'm not doing this right because I'm not, like, all the things, that picture that had been painted, like, that's not my experience. Yeah. Right. I have a great team around me that works, and they take care of their responsibilities, and I let them. I don't micromanage. They're grown-ups. You're a grown-up. You want to do well. You want to honor the Lord. I'm going to trust you to do a good job, Yeah. We have people that pastor the people, care for the people. And I legit was telling my friends, like, I hope I'm doing this right because this isn't what everybody said it would be. Yeah. And now my suspicion is that, that was the picture being painted, number one, because people like to be a martyr and they want everybody to feel like they're paying the ultimate price. I think for some people, their sense of validation and value comes from how many hours they work and how much they grind, and that makes them feel significant. Yeah. I think for others, whatever they were handed to get it started, they had to put in time like that, and they never reset. They just kept doing it that way. But all that to get back to your God's promises and his assignment versus like our urgency and our sense of responsibility. this is my belief for Cornerstone Church. Like, I work. I mean, if you go ask Judy, who sits in the office right outside mine, she'll tell you, I'm here, I'm committed, I'm present. But the best thing for Cornerstone Church and the people of Cornerstone is for me to be spiritually healthy, emotionally engaged, mentally strong.
Yeah.
The best thing for this church is for me to be a great husband.
Yeah.
And a great father. The best thing for this church is for me to be a man of God.
Yeah.
For me to have communion with the Lord. For me to be spiritually sensitive to the things of God. And certainly in the last 13 months, there have been stretches where my bandwidth has, like, I've kind of reached it, you know. But I recognize that, and I'm learning how to recalibrate, you know, okay, my bandwidth is maxed. Somebody needs to preach Wednesday night. My bandwidth is maxed. I need to take a Friday and not come in.
Yeah.
But by and large, I feel like the best thing I can do for the purposes of God is be the man that God needs me to be so he can do those purposes, not work myself to death to do this for God.
Yeah.
Right? I'm either doing this for God or I'm doing this with God. And I really believe if you go all the way back to the garden, the Lord wants to do things with us. Right?
Yeah.
And so I would just say to anybody out there, whatever occupational field, whatever it is that you're doing, what the world needs is a spiritually vibrant, emotionally healthy, mentally strong man or woman of God. Like, that's what the world needs, right? And really the only way you can be that is if you govern your life and your schedule in such a way that you aren't stretched thin, that you aren't worn out. There are times when you're going to be tired. There are stretches you're just worn out. Like, that's like, if you do it right, you're going to be tired. You know, I get to the end of the day, I'm tired, right?
Yeah.
But I need to make sure that my life has adequate margin so that I can be spiritually vibrant, emotionally healthy, mentally strong.
Yeah.
Because it is through that I have longevity. It is because of that I don't slip into illegitimate patterns. It's by managing myself that way that I don't drift into sin. I don't start, compensating because I'm tired. I can be a healthier person. I know this is probably a longer conversation on this than you wanted to get into, but that quote, from Aaron Burke, and I think he said he got it from somebody else. When he said it stirred me because God does know our increments. He does know time. He does know the clock. And I mean, I just think it's like he's not going to put something on us that we don't, quote, have time for.
Yeah. Now
he might want something from us that won't culminate until after our time. There are things, I believe there are things that God has put in me that I've been reading in First Chronicles. David wanted to build the temple.
Yeah.
He wanted to build a temple. He said, I mean, the ark is out in a tent and I'm in a palace. So he wanted to build a temple. God, Nathan said, do it, God's with you, do what's in your heart. But then God said, no, your son is going to build it, right? And so there was something in David's heart, and the genesis of it, the vision for it, the dream for it initiated with David, but it didn't happen until after David's time.
Yeah.
And so I'm even okay with that there's some stuff that will originate in me. There's some stuff that I will kind of push the ball and get it rolling, but the Lord doesn't plan for me to see it.
Yeah.
And I'm good with that. And so I think there has to be all the way come back to, I want to do everything with the Lord. And I feel like when we don't govern our schedule well, when we don't manage our world well, it's rooted in several things. We have inferior ideas about how God sees us. And so we're trying to prove ourselves. We're trying to find value.
Yeah.
Or we are people pleasers. and we're scared to death somebody's going to be disappointed in us.
Yeah.
And we're terrified that if they're disappointed in us, they won't make it. And I'll just say flat out, as a pastor, I have to be comfortable with people being disappointed in me.
Yeah.
Not because of sin, that's not acceptable.
Yeah.
Not because I was harsh or wrong or mistreated somebody, but like I will not be able to dance to everybody's song.
Yeah.
I will not be able to meet every need. I will not be able to satisfy everybody's expectations. The only way that I can be healthy is if I am okay with some people being disappointed. Now, I got to identify who that can't be.
Yeah.
You know, them people under my roof, that it can't be them.
Yeah.
Right? But even at that, like you can't let everybody else set expectations for you, because you'll run around, even for the people in your family, scared to death you're going to disappoint them because your parents weren't what you needed them to be, and you're determined you're not going to be that. So you run your kids all over the planet, giving them everything they want, doing everything that, you know, every whim and wish they have, and it's killing you.
Yeah.
So anyway, this is a direction we didn't really intend to go on, but if you're going to host the presence of the Lord well, you have to control your schedule, not let your schedule control you.
Yeah.
Now, there are times, I want to reiterate, where your schedule runs you.
Yeah.
Like, that's just the way it is. Like, there are stretches, but there should be mechanisms in your life that reset to get control back of my schedule. Not in that controlling issue ways like we talked about in the message, but being a good steward of my time.
Yeah.
And handling it well. And being a good steward of your time is not just a matter of like, do I procrastinate or not? You know, it is, when I wake up, have I told my day what it's going to be?
Yeah.
Now, there's always the possibility stuff's going to come that I didn't, you know, that I didn't plan for, right?
Yeah.
But most days should be me waking up and telling my day what it's going to be.
Yeah.
And if I do that, then I am, because I want God and I'm after his heart, I'm waking up telling my day, here is how we're going to engage with the Lord. Here's when I'm going to pray. Here's how I'm going to handle this. Here's how I'm going to, what I'm going to consume today to stir my spirit. You know, it's just anyway, I don't, you probably have other questions, and I know we went down
No, it's
a
all
rant.
good. Well, as we wrap up here, it just reminded me, you're talking through those things, and it reminds me of, and we probably don't have time to get into it this week, but maybe we will later, but it just reminded me of the story of Abraham. He had a promise from the Lord, and for one reason or the other, he forced the timeline.
Yeah.
And had Ishmael.
Yes.
And then the promise Isaac still came, but it created a lot more headache than it needed to. And
I've preached this to ministers before, that that if you're not careful, the Ishmael that you create will always fight the promises of God, the Isaac on your life. Like that you will create conflict between what God really wants to do in your life and all of the things that are born of your efforts. Yes, very true.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of people, not necessarily you listening, but for a lot of people, the stress we experience, the anxiety we experience, the worry we experience, the fear of those emotionally degenerating feelings that we experience. A lot of people, the reason they experience them is because they have not ordered their world. They have not gotten a handle on commanding their day to be what it's going to be. And as a result, you are in this constant state of angst or uncertainty or anxiety. And I would say this, if somebody's dealing with those emotional, if those emotions, the place that I would start, obviously I get in the Word, I meditate on the Word, I consume the Scriptures, but I also would start with, what does my day look like? Yeah. And let me start reworking the way my days look and see if that emotion will start dissipating. You know, that's not the only thing. Sometimes it's because of some past hurt, some past wound. I just know for me, I get stressed. Stress hits me when I feel like there are 5 things going that need my attention, and I'm trying to give them all my attention.
Yeah.
And they all feel just a touch elusive. I feel stress. I feel angst in that. I'm not a multitasker. So,
well, there's still quite about 2 more weeks, I think, of Hospitable. And this first one was really about hosting. She was hosting the prophet, and it kind of translated into hosting the presence of the Lord. So it was a good discussion on it's really important to make the room not as an afterthought, but as a priority, to prioritize your time with the Lord.
Yes. And I mean, Michelle and I, we kind of laughed about it Sunday afternoon, yesterday. I can't remember. I talked about the 4 pieces of furniture, and I probably could have done a sermon on each piece.
Yeah.
And maybe down the road, a few years down the road, everybody will forget that I preached this, and I'll revisit it, and I'll do 4 weeks, one on each piece of furniture. But I know we've got a Christmas series coming, and so I've got to wrap this up before then. So,
well, if you haven't got a chance, you need to go back and listen to this sermon, like I said at the beginning, and be on the lookout for this week's sermon, Hospitable Part 2, and be ready for us to deep dive it.
Yeah, just going to say, if you want to know where we're going, just read a little ahead in the story, and you'll see.
It's crazy. It gets crazy. It's all good crazy.
It's in the Bible.
Yeah.
You can just go ahead and do a little homework or a little study ahead of time.
Awesome. Well, thank y'all. We'll see y'all next time.